The U.S. State Department is investigating a suicide car bombing attack near the U.S. consulate in the Kurdish Iraqi city of Erbil. ISIS claimed responsibility for last week's attack, making it the first time it had directly targeted a major U.S. installation. Erbil is also where some American diplomatic personnel were moved away from Baghdad after ISIS moved closer to the Iraqi capital. It raised serious questions about the threat level from ISIS inside the Kurdish territory. Let's go to Erbil right now. I want to bring in Qubad Talabani. He's the Deputy Prime Minister of the Kurdistan Regional Government. He's joining us live from Erbil. Qubad, thanks very much for joining us. The attack on the U.S. consulate, I know no Americans were killed or seriously injured, but is this a wake-up call that ISIS is directly going after the heart of Kurdistan, Erbil, where you are right now?
Thank you, Wolf. Thanks for having me on your show again. It's well known that in the last few weeks, the Kurdish forces have made significant advances in our fight against ISIS. We've been able to defeat them in numerous battles, and also repel several attempts by ISIL to take back some territory that we had taken from them. But as you rightly said, recently there was this attack in Erbil. It was in a usually populated part of the city, very close to the U.S. consulate. It is not quite clear yet whether the U.S. consulate was the direct target, because the vehicle that exploded was parked outside of a cafe that is across the road from the U.S. consulate.
That's a pretty big consulate. There are hundreds of Americans, diplomats, military personnel, private citizens in Erbil, right? Do you have any number of how many Americans are there?
There is a sizable U.S. presence at the consulate in Erbil. They have an economic office, they have cultural offices, and they're doing very good work here, and we're very pleased to have them there. They're in a relatively, obviously a very secure facility, even though it is Erbil, and Erbil is not prone to the kinds of attacks that you're seeing more frequently in other parts of the country. We were very disappointed that this one got through our very tight security service. I can say that the perpetrator of this attack has been detained by our intelligence services, and we're investigating the attack, how it happened, in order to make sure that we continue to be vigilant. We have to expect, as we continue to hit ISIS and as we continue to defeat ISIS, that they will try to hurt us again in our capital and in other parts of Kurdistan.
Are you getting weapons, arms from the United States directly now to your Peshmerga fighters, or do they still have to go through the central government in Baghdad before they reach you? Because, as you know, a lot of members of Congress are upset that it takes a long time, if ever, for some of those weapons to reach your fighters.
Wolf, this is still a point of frustration for us in Kurdistan. We're fighting this fight, we're leading this fight against ISIL. We've been the most effective force in this fight against ISIL. We are very grateful for the U.S. support. We're grateful for the U.S. air support in our operations. But we are not getting the weapons and the ammunitions that we need to continue this fight for a sustained period of time. I get a feeling that we're being drip-fed weapons to be able to fight battle per battle. It still has to go through some process of clearance from Baghdad, and there's still a level of complication that, in all honesty, we've gotten accustomed to. But we're talking about a long-term war against a very violent group, and this is going to require more sustained support and more kind of continued support. Direct ammunitions. We've proven our effectiveness in being able to use these weapons. We've defeated ISIS. We've continued to defeat ISIS continually since the start of this conflict in June and July. But the situation is not to our liking. We do need more weapons. Remember, Wolf, also, we're in the midst of a financial crisis in Kurdistan. We have 1.5 million refugees and IDPs that are seeking refuge in Kurdistan. This is taxing our own government's resources. We're providing healthcare, education, all kinds of services to these IDPs. Baghdad is still not providing us our full entitlement of the federal budget. So our brave soldiers that are currently on the front lines fighting against ISIL have not been paid 2 months of their salaries because of the situation that we're in, because Baghdad hasn't paid us what it should be paying us up until now, and because we have the added burden of fighting a war as well as housing 1.5 million refugees.
Qubad Talabani is the Deputy Prime Minister of Kurdistan. Qubad, thanks very much for joining us. Good luck. We'll stay in close touch with you. Appreciate your joining us.